Genesis 1's creation account has long been recognized for being patterned around the number 7 and its multiples. Credit for popularizing this information should probably go to Kasuto. But since much of this is fairly well known and a good commentary will cover this ground, I'm going to speed run some of these observations. Jumping straight in, the three nouns in Genesis 1:1, God, heavens, earth, all occur in multiples of 7, 35, 21, and 21 respectively. The terms day occurs 14 times, water occurs 7 times in days 2 and 3. There are 7 references to light in day 4. The phrase, and God saw, occurs 7 times. It was good occurs 7 times, the 7th being very good. Now, 7 is a rather flexible number, and so you will find it occurring by random chance. But many of these 7s, noted by scholars, appear deliberate. I think a good example of this deliberateness is seen in the phrase on the earth, which is used 7 times. Between the 6th and 7th use is a variant phrase. Rather than on the earth, we get on the face of all the earth. Had the author used the common phrase on the earth, the count would be 8. So he uses a variant phrase to keep the number at 7. A similar thing can be seen with the speeches of God. You would think in a passage dominated by the number 7, God would speak 7 times, but he speaks 10 times. And maybe these 10 utterances of God should be seen as a link to the 10 commandments of Exodus, because the 10 commandments in Hebrew are literally the 10 words. But even in these 10, there's a 7. As Kasuto notes, 7 of these speeches are directed at creation. The remaining 3 are spoken concerning man. Let us make man, be fruitful and multiply, and I have given you, that is mankind, every plant yielding seed. And as we can see here, there is perhaps an 11th speech of God that is unlike the others, and we'll return to that. Now, our English translations make an unfortunate chapter break after verse 31. Really, Genesis 2, verses 1 through 3 belong to the previous chapter. This is evidenced by the Masoretes placing 7 paragraph breaks to correspond to the 7 days. If we follow the divisions of the Masoretes, the first creation account is 469 words, or 67 times 7. And we also have a cluster of 7s occurring in these last verses. Kasuto writes in his Genesis commentary, pages 14 and 15, in the 7th paragraph, which deals with the 7th day, there occurred the following 3 consecutive sentences, each of which consists of 7 words, and contains in the middle the expression, the 7th day. And so it reads, and on the 7th day, God finished his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. So he blessed the 7th day and hallowed it. And so the 7th paragraph ends in 35 words, 5 times 7. And note that triple 7th day. That mirrors the opening verses. Verse 1 is 7 words and 28 letters. Verse 2 is 14 words. And so we open the creation account with the triple 7 of words. And I also want to highlight the 7-word introduction. In the Bible, 7s are often divided into 3 plus 1 plus 3. This menorah pattern happens a lot in Scripture, and so there's often some kind of emphasis in that middle part. So what's our middle word in Genesis 1:1? Well, it's this, et, which isn't even a word really. It's technically the direct object marker, but it's made up of alef and tav, the first and last letters of the 22-letter Hebrew alphabet. Think alpha and omega, to use the more familiar Greek. Now, this is one of those things that I think some people take too far, and that, unfortunately, makes others overcorrect in the other direction. Some will say, we have this alef and tav, and this means Hebrew is what God spoke, and it's woven into all of creation. Others will say, it's the direct object marker, this happens in other languages, there's nothing to see here, moving on. I'm somewhere in the middle. Jesus' opening words in Revelation are, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I don't think it should be hand-waved that Aleph and Tav occur in the center of a menorah-shaped 7-word sentence to start all of Scripture. Again, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and there are 11s and 22s here and in Genesis more broadly. Remember, we looked at the 10 utterances, the 10 speeches of God. Well, there is that one off variant of God speaking, but it doesn't follow the previous pattern. If you count it, you have 11 speeches of God, and it occurs in, maybe coincidentally, verse 22. Even in English, you can see the pattern breaking nature of it. Saying versus said. In this vein, it should be noted the blessing for mankind in verse 28 is 22 words and 88 letters. Because 22, its multiples and divisors aren't absent from the structure of Genesis 1, I don't think we should quickly dismiss the significance of Aleph and Tav being positioned in the middle of the first verse of Scripture by way of this menorah pattern. And it should also be noted there is a menorah in Genesis 1, notably also in the center of a 7. In the fourth day, there are references to lights, 7 references, in fact. It's not a frequent term, and nearly everywhere else, it refers to the light from the menorah placed in the tabernacle or temple. Check out my video on the symbolism of the menorah for more details on that. Now, what I've covered so far, a good commentary is going to point out, but I want to transition here to other structural aspects not noted in these discussions. 17s and 26s, the number values of the divine name Yahweh, are going to be found in this text. As we looked at in the intro video to the series, 26 is the value of Yahweh, 17 is the value of a hypothetical form of I am. It's also the value of Yahweh using the misparketon method of counting. And both of these numbers, 17 and 26, are also the number values of kavod, glory. And as a side note, someone asked in the comments of one of my videos once about the number 21. Why isn't that the value of the divine name? And remember, we saw 777s to open and close the creation account here. What they were getting at is 21 is the number value of I am. God says out of the burning bush, Aleph He Yod He. The number value of that is 21. But the answer to why not 21, as far as I can tell, is for whatever reason, the scribes tended to structure things around 17 and 26. Maybe because of the connection between God's name and his glory, both sharing the same number value. But I don't know. If you're seeing what appears to be a deliberate structuring around 21 or 777s, maybe it's a reference to I am. But back to the topic at hand, another piece of evidence for holding off chapter 2 until verse 4 is Genesis 1:1 to 2:3 are 34 verses, or 2 times 17. And as we've already looked at, the first 2 verses seem to be very deliberately structured, even down to a word and letter level. This is also evidenced by the fact that the first 2 verses are 52 letters, or 2 times 26. The first 5 verses, which constitute the first day, indicated by the first paragraph break, are 52 words, again, 2 times 26. There's a few more divine number values, though some of these could be seen as arbitrary since they don't correspond directly with the paragraph breaks in the MT. But days 2 through 4, or verses 6 through 18, are 170 words, 10 times 17. Of course, this leaves hanging outside verse 19, which states evening, morning, day 4, then the paragraph break, though the same phenomena happens immediately following. Day 5, verses 20 through 22 are 51 words, 3 times 17. Then verse 23 states evening, morning, day 5, again, paragraph break. And once again, verses 24 through 26 are also 51 words, 3 times 17. Verses 28 through 31 are 85, or 5 times 17 words. 26 words are used for the first 3 divine speeches. Speeches 3 through 8 have 78, or 3 times 26 words. And I imagine some of these could be coincidental. However, I think it's significant that the divine speech dealing with the creation of humans occurs in the 26th verse and is 17 words long. Genesis 1 isn't, in my mind at least, one of the better examples of divine number values in a text, but I think it is significant there are likely at least a few on the first page of Scripture.